Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video. Today's topic is the current and possible future total cost for the Total War Warhammer series and if the series itself is worth the price. So without further ado, let's begin. Total War Warhammer exploded into the gaming world as soon as it was announced. Based on the fantasy tabletop universe known as Warhammer Fantasy Battles, this world is full of magic, monsters and demons. The series was announced much to the joy of fans worldwide, a 3-part game series each with unique races and factions, and thankfully a system which would see them implemented together. We are currently nearing the end of the second game's lifespan at the time of recording this video, and so far we have had a massive amount of DLC separated into two categories, both paid and free. Naturally, 2 games with a third on its way and an ever-expanding list of DLC content, things can get rather costly, especially when much older content still remains at its original price at the time of recording this video. While the series itself is still wildly popular, with tens of thousands of players playing on a daily basis, there are some who see the rising price for the series as a deterrent. So in this video, I want to highlight the current price of the series, speculate at the possible final price of the series, and finally have a is it worth it discussion with you all. Before we begin, please bear in mind the following points. Firstly, prices when looking at the games and the DLC packs will be discussed in my native Steam currency, which are euros, but when we discuss the final cost, we'll be highlighting it in multiple currencies. Secondly, any other currencies mentioned in this video will be calculated using online exchange rates, so results may vary depending on your location, and obviously exchange rate fluctuation. And lastly, we will not be going into too much detail on what each DLC contains, but rather touching upon them in brief. But with all that being said, let's start checking out some prices. Obviously, we'll first talk about the first base game, Total War Warhammer 1, launching with 4 unique playable races, the Empire of Man, the Dwarfs, the Greenskins, also known as the Orcs and Goblins, and finally the Vampire Counts. Each of these races also came with 2 different legendary lords offering unique playstyles for each race. This game launched on May 2016 and currently retains its price of €50.99. Alongside this came the infamous Day 1 DLC for the Warriors of Chaos. This DLC introduced a new playable faction, the Warriors of Chaos, with 3 different unique playable legendary lords. The DLC itself was shrouded in controversy as it was made to purchase before the game even launched, but due to community backlash, it was turned into a pre-order incentive where it was free for the player if they pre-purchased the game before the launch. A minor victory, but a victory nonetheless. This DLC currently stands at €7.99. The next DLC brought further community backlash in the name of Blood for the Blood God, a cosmetic content pack which added blood effects among some other things into the game. Naturally, since this is a Total War game, and more specifically based on the Warhammer world which is full of blood and gore, fans were not happy that this was paid for content, and are still not, which is understandable. However, at the very least we know that this DLC pack transfers into all future Total War Warhammer games for free, a small consolation I know, but at least it's something. This DLC currently stands at €2.99. Now we'll look towards the first big DLC pack, the Call of the Beastmen. This introduced a new playable race, the Screaming Goats known as the Beastmen, 2 unique legendary lords, and a mini-campaign which, depending on who you ask, was either fun or just not worth it. The general agreement on the DLC, however, from both sides is that the race lacked legendary lord options and the roster lacked units. This DLC currently stands at €18.99. Next is the Grim and the Grave, the first of many Lord Pack type DLCs which expanded upon already established races. This introduced new units for both the Empire of Man and the Vampire Counts, whilst also introducing a legendary lord for each race. This DLC currently stands at €8.99. This was followed by another Lord Pack, the King and the Warlord, which once again expands upon already established races. This introduced new units for both the Greenskins and the Dwarfs, while also including a legendary lord for each race. This DLC currently stands at €8.99. Just a quick sidebar here, we're already starting to notice quite a large cost of entry, and this can already turn a few potential players away from the series, but thankfully a new system was implemented as from here. Where now anytime a DLC launched, we also got an FLC, which is a free DLC content pack. Sure, it's nothing too big, but it's usually around a new legendary lord or something similar, and it's free, so it's a benefit. The first FLC content was Wurzag, the Great Green Prophet, and as expected, this DLC content is free. Next, we received another FLC content, which was Grombrindle the White Dwarf, a legendary lord character for the dwarfs. Originally, you technically had to purchase this character, as it was an incentive to purchase White Dwarf magazine. If you purchased the magazine, you would get access to Grombrindle sooner than anyone else. Eventually, this character was made free download for everyone, so naturally this is now counted as free content. Next, we have the Realm of the Wood Elves, another race pack. This introduced the Wood Elves into the Total War Warhammer series, 2 unique playable legendary lords, and a mini campaign which many people once again either liked or disliked. Once again, the general agreement from both sides is that the race lacks legendary lord options and lacks roster units. This was the last time a standalone mini-campaign was implemented into the Total War Warhammer series in favour of more complete rosters. This DLC currently stands at €18.99. Accompanying this race pack was also 2 LC content sets. First was the Grey Wizard, which allowed the Empire of Man to recruit Grey Wizards. This gave them access to the Lore of Shadows. And secondly was the Jade Wizard, which allowed the Empire of Man to recruit Jade Wizards and gave them access to the Lore of Life. Both of these packs, as expected, were free. At this point, we're already starting to receive a decent amount of free downloadable content, with the biggest free DLC also being released in Total War Warhammer 1, that of Bretonnia, a unique playable race that came with 3 different legendary lords, a full complete roster, and a new playstyle altogether. This is a race that primarily focuses around mounted combat over anything else. Once again, as expected, this is free. And now we look towards the last free DLC pack, that of Isabella von Carstein, a new legendary lord for the vampire counts. Now, we've also got some other stuff which was added in, like Vlad von Carstein, Krell and so on, but excuse my ignorance, as far as I am aware, they were patched into the game directly, so they don't really form part of a DLC or FLC combination. And now lastly, for Total War Warhammer 1, we have the DLC pack for Norsca. This was a paid-for DLC which introduced the Warriors of Norsca as a playable race. Alongside this race came 2 unique legendary lords and a host of different mechanics. Unfortunately for this DLC though, it suffered from a bit of community backlash, mainly because firstly it was a lot of reskinned units, which a lot of people weren't a fan of naturally, and secondly it was a pre-order incentive for Total War Warhammer 2, which never got to be playable in the main campaign of Total War Warhammer 2. Yeah, some issues happened, they had some issues porting some stuff over, it was a big fiasco to be honest. This DLC currently stands at €9.99. With that, we've looked at all content, both paid and free, for Total War Warhammer 1. Our grand total cost at the moment is €136.92. Yeah, it's quite a big number, isn't it? But before we start discussing it and whether it's worth it or not, we need to look towards Total War Warhammer 2. Firstly, and obviously, is the base game, a standalone to the Total War Warhammer series. Total War Warhammer 2 introduces 4 new unique playable races, the Skaven, the High Elves, the Dark Elves, and the Lizardmen, each of which came with 2 unique different playable legendary lords. As this was a standalone game, it featured a host of new mechanics, features, and so on. The current price for Total War Warhammer 2's base game is €59.99. Next is once again the cosmetic pack known as Blood for the Blood God, but we're not going to include this price here because we've already mentioned it in the first game, and as we've stated before, if you own it for one, you own it for the other. And now we have the biggest free DLC content pack to date, the Mortal Empires campaign. It's locked behind the paywall though. The Mortal Empires is a combination of the campaign from Game 1 and Game 2, where if you have access to both games, any content you have from Game 1 will transfer over to Game 2. This also includes any DLC and free DLC that you may have on your account from Total War Warhammer 1. This is by far the biggest reason to purchase both games. All your stuff from Total War Warhammer 1 is compatible with the second game in the Mortal Empires campaign, and seeing as that stuff has been moved over, a lot of those races and factions have seen different reworks and updates which have made them more fun and playable. This is a free content patch, and thankfully so. We're going to get an even bigger one in Total War Warhammer 3, but let's talk about that a little bit later. Now we have the first race pack for Total War Warhammer 2, the Rise of the Tomb Kings. This is where the race packs now became much more worth it in terms of their cost. The Rise of the Tomb Kings includes a new playable race, that of the Tomb Kings, 4 different unique playable legendary lords, and an almost complete roster very much similar to the 8th edition army book for the Tomb Kings. This DLC pack currently stands at €18.99. Naturally, a free DLC pack also came alongside this. This introduced Tretch Craventail as a playable legendary lord for the Skaven. Shortly after this, we also had a free downloadable pack made available. This was known as the Steps of Isha, which was a map pack only available for multiplayer and custom battles, so it is rather forgettable. But now we move towards the first Lord pack, which is the Queen and the Crone. This adds in new units for both the Dark Elves and the High Elves, and a legendary Lord for each. As this is a usual Lord pack, the current price for this is €8.99. As we're currently used to now, a free downloadable content was also released alongside this. Aleph Anar, a new legendary Lord playable for the High Elves. Moving on, we have another race pack, that of the Vampire Coast. This pack introduces 4 different unique legendary lords, a host of new mechanics among other things. Given that this is a race pack once again, the current standing price is €18.99. Alongside this race pack came another free downloadable content, which was Lokier Felheart, a new legendary lord playable for the Dark Elves. Next is the Prophet and the Warlock DLC, a new paid-for downloadable content pack which introduced new units and new legendary lords for the Skaven and the Lizardmen. This, once again, is a Lord pack, so its current standing price is €8.99. Alongside this came another free downloadable content, Tic-Tac-Toe, a new playable legendary Lord for the Lizardmen. Next was the Hunter and the Beast, the first cross-game DLC. This not only introduced new legendary lords and units for their respective races, but was the first time a Game 1 race was also introduced as a playable race in the Eye of the Vortex campaign for Total War Warhammer 2. As this is a Lord pack, once again the price stands at €8.99. Alongside the Hunt and the Beast came Gorok, a free DLC downloadable legendary lord for the Lizardmen. Next is the Shadow and the Blade, which introduced new units and legendary lords for the Skaven and the Dark Elves. Once again, this is a Lord pack, so it currently stands at €8.99. Again, this also came with a free DLC pack, this time introducing Repanse de Lyonesse, which also brought in a Game 1 race into Game 2, that of Bretonnia. So now you could play as Bretonnia in the Eye of the Vortex campaign. I'm assuming this was implemented because Bretonnia was free originally, so it's not really costing them that much, just the production of the legendary lord and the voice acting and so on. Next we have the Warden and the Paunch, another cross-game DLC between Game 1 and Game 2. This introduces legendary lords for the Greenskins and the High Elves, and introduces a bunch of new units for both. Once again, as this is a Lord pack, the current standing price is €8.99. And finally we have Prince Imric of Caledor, another free downloadable content lord, which adds a new legendary lord to the High Elves, with the current grand total for Total War Warhammer 2 being €142.92. We have to take into account that there's still one remaining lord pack, and most likely the pre-order DLC incentive for Total War Warhammer 3, but we'll get to that in just a second. When we add in all current costs, it totals to €279.84. Also listed here are the prices in pounds and dollars when using current exchange rates. I can understand why this price can be very daunting for new players trying to get into the series. It is a lot of money, but you have to take into account that this is content that has been spread out throughout 4 years since the release of the series originally. And yeah, things are going to get more expensive, especially if prices don't start dropping, given the fact that we still have some content left for Total War Warhammer 2, and obviously Total War Warhammer 3 is just around the corner. There's going to be a lot of DLC there. If my speculation is correct, there is going to be much more DLC for Total War Warhammer 3 than there has been for 1 and 2. But we'll get to that in just a second. If you've gotten this far and you're a person considering getting into the game series, let me offer you some advice. Jump straight into Total War Warhammer 2 instead of going back to the first game. This is the game that has the most quality of life updates, and it's the most up to date. This is the one that you'll want to be playing. Even if you don't have any interest in the second game's races and you rather the Game 1 races, the best thing you can do is purchase the first and the second game together. Obviously, if you can get it for a reduced cost, especially maybe through a sale, even better. But I'm reinforcing here that you'll want to play the second game over the first. As stated, if you prefer the Game 1 races, once you buy both you have access to the Mortal Empires, which is the mainstay for the second game. Once you have both games, you can download a massive amount of FLC content already, so you've already got access to a lot of free content. Even if you have no interest in the races that the free DLC provides, you might as well just get it anyway, it's free. Now, in regards to the paid for DLC, there is no need to buy everything straight off the bat, especially if you have no interest of playing those races just yet. How this game works is that as soon as the game has been updated for a new launch, you'll see all the new characters and the new units, even if you won't be able to play them, so you can more or less get a feel on how they look. You should start buying specific DLC when you know you want to play as those races, thus saving you more money until you actually need to spend that cash. Also, you never know, the Total War series does go on sale quite often, so you might be able to grab a bunch of DLC at a fraction of the cost. Believe me, I have over 3,000 hours into this series. You don't need every DLC to have fun. There is enough content with just the base game races, not including the FLC, to keep you busy for hundreds of hours, so you shouldn't feel like there's too much of a cost of entry. You can easily come in with just the base games and have a lot of fun with it. But now let's look towards the upcoming content and see more or less how much it would cost. In regards to Total War Warhammer 2, we're still due one more Lord pack, one FLC pack, and most likely a pre-order game incentive. So we can safely assume, given the trend in pricing, that everything would stay more or less the same. $8.99 for the Lord pack, a free FLC pack, and the pre-order race could also be $8.99. But once we get into Total War Warhammer 3, this is where things start getting more speculative, considering the fact that it's the last game of the series, so it's most likely to have the most DLC. They've got nothing else to work to in terms of a base game. I'm not going to outline the possible free packs here because obviously they don't cost anything. The only reason I wanted to outline them back when we were covering Game 1 and Game 2 is to show that there is a lot of free content to go alongside the paid stuff. And it's also very likely that we'll continue to get free content packs alongside any releases for any paid ones. So what you're seeing on screen right now is more or less what I believe we'll get in terms of paid content in the future in Total War Warhammer 3. Yes, this is quite a lot, but we have to take into account, once again, this is the last game of the series, so this will be spread out quite well. In most cases, the average release in terms of a new DLC pack is around 4 to 5 months. So this already guarantees quite a long lifespan for this game. Hopefully a lot longer, but more consistent than Total War Warhammer 2. I'm giving the lifespan for Total War Warhammer 3 around 4, maybe 5 years. We'll go with 4 just in case, but this I think is quite realistic in terms of an 8-year lifespan. Yeah, hopefully they'll be able to reduce the prices for former DLC and former base games, because, well, some of them are getting really old at this point. And naturally, a reduction of cost, especially for older content, will be more attractive to new players, but we'll need to wait and see. Remember that Creative Assembly does not own Warhammer, so a lot of this pricing is done because, well, they need to split the profits, and I'm assuming a lot of the profits, with Games Workshop, the actual owners of the Warhammer franchise. And as a person who plays the tabletop itself, let me tell you, Warhammer is not cheap. They do like their money. Yeah, it's just how it is. But I think realistically this is more or less what it'll cost at the end of the series. Obviously this could change, especially if discounts come into effect or if Creative Assembly start implementing some bundle packs. It's all left in the air at the moment. What do you guys think about this possible final price? I know it's very large, but please take into account that obviously this is a very long-standing series. The reason I actually wanted to get this video done is because I was discussing the price with a few friends that wanted to get into the series, and yeah, they were thrown off a bit. It's quite heavy. And obviously that's why I decided to dedicate a portion of this video just to basically give some ideas on how new players can potentially buy into the series without spending way too much cash. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various different links to social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram and Discord, where you can get in contact with the Great Book team. Also in the description section below is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using our special link and also using our special code, both of which are in the description below, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. Honestly, it's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A special thank you to our patrons Gibraltar LUSC and Ryan Birch for subscribing to us at our Thane level. Honestly, you guys are super cool. And a big thank you to our patron Edward Huell for subscribing to us at our King level. Mate, you're super awesome. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.